You're listening to A Radio.
According to Breitbart, Guatemalan leftists with ties to Pelosi and Soros fight Trump's migration deal. A number of leftist activists in Guatemala are fighting President Trump's recent third safe country agreement with Guatemalan government, many of whom have ties to the billionaire George Soros and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The deal, though, has come with significant pushback from institutional leftists in Guatemala, including those who have ties to Pelosi and Soros. According to Breitbart, Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, was previously financially aided by George Soros, who financed MoveOn.org to win his congressional seat. Schiff was also awarded the Toll Fellowship, which is sponsored by the Council of State Governments, a non-profit that monitors federal government activities and is heavily financed by the Soros' Open Society Foundation.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is The Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This piece is from Neon Nettle, and it's a report basically on a piece done in the New York Times. Speaking during an interview with the New York Times, Soros says that globalism will soon rise up again to ultimately prevail. Soros made this declaration despite nationalism making significant gains in recent years, with Brexit and the election victories of US President Donald Trump and Italy's Matteo Salvini. The Hungarian-born billionaire acknowledges that globalists, like himself, are, quote, out of favour, unquote, amid the nationalist populist movement, but says Trump is just a temporary aberration and that globalism will soon vanquish nationalism. Speaking about, quote, the enemies I have, unquote, Soros suggested Trump is, quote, a dictator, unquote. President Trump, quote, is an aberration and he is clearly putting his personal interests ahead of the national interests, unquote, he told the New York Times. That's a fact, he said, unquote. He added, quote, I mean, just last week, what he has done in the Middle East has been devastating for America's influence in the world, unquote, he said, referring to the withdrawal of the American troops from Syria. His face brightening, he said, quote, I think it will contribute to his demise next year. So I'm slightly predicting that things will turn around, unquote. According to Soros, the rise of nationalism in America and Europe and around the world is simply a coincidence. Quote, I have to admit that the tide has turned against me, but I don't think I have failed, unquote. Soros told NPR Radio during a separate interview. Elsewhere in the New York Times interview, George Soros, who's one of the largest donors of leftist parties in Europe and America, predicts Trump will lose in the 2020 election. He insists that Democratic hopeful Senator Elizabeth Warren is, quote, the most qualified to be president, unquote. And George Soros claims President Trump's popularity will lose favour and the tide will turn in favour of globalism. Despite his warm words, Soros pointed out that he doesn't officially stand behind Warren. I'm not endorsing anybody, he says, because I want to work with whoever, he added, unquote. Quote, I don't express my views generally because I have to live with whoever the electorate chooses, unquote. Although he admits that his internationalist agenda has become more difficult to implement due to the rise of populism around the world in the past few years, the Jewish American financier is still convinced globalism will prevail. Soros said he saw signs that people were growing tired of nationalistic tendencies. For Soros, the failure to implement Brexit is a clear indication that globalism is winning. Quote, "The arc of history doesn't follow its own course. It needs to be bent," he said. "I'm really engaged in trying to bend it in the right direction." Okay, so that's the piece. The links will be on my site. Now my comments are, he believes that he sees signs of nationalism, as he calls it, wavering. I beg to differ. I think he's reading whatever he wants to read rather than reading what's going on. If you go outside the Washington DC bubble and talk to real people and listen to real people, you'll hear what you don't want to hear if you're a leftist. People are happier, they've got more money, they've got more opportunities, businesses are starting up, businesses are coming back from abroad. So what could be bad about that, except if you're a leftist and you want to be controlled by China? No, Mr. Soros has got it all wrong, but he's trying to paint a picture that President Trump is out of touch with the American public. I think he's wrong. I think he's totally wrong. And clearly, we know that he's investing, and that if investing is the right word, I think interfering is a more accurate word, with European politics and British politics. And what happened in Britain recently with Brexit is not the will of the people, it's the will of Parliament, who do not at present represent the people. They are representing the elite. These people are not putting through what citizens of the UK wanted them to do. They are ignoring the will of the people, Mr. Soros. At the end of the day, Mr. Soros, politicians work for the people, not the other way round as you would like it. And if you think it's a good idea for China to control all the world's natural resources and control all the world's seaways, then good luck to you, because I don't. And I don't think Americans do. And by the way, Mr. Soros has interfered in Canadian elections too, and continues to do to this day, by promoting Agenda 2030, shoving it down our throats in Canada. So if you want to see what the future of the United States may possibly look like, take a look at your neighbours to the north and see, would you like that? Would you like that? $6 a gallon or more for gas? And that's just the beginning. Food shortages already in Canada because the prices are going up. The cost of shipping across this country is astronomical, which affects every single thing. And would you like it as an American that all your products that you import are not valued in your currency? Because that's what's happening in Canada, thanks to Mr. Soros devaluing the Canadian dollar, because 57 Genders Trudeau is working for Soros and the UN. He's not working for Canadians. Do you want your next president to be working for the UN? Or do you want the next president of the United States to be working for you? Because if you vote for a Democrat, most likely they'll be working for Soros and the UN. I leave you with these examples. Pelosi, Adam Schiff, just to name two, are being heavily supported by George Soros. How can they be independent if they're being supported by George Soros? Which would you rather have? Somebody who doesn't need external money, or somebody who relies on it to promote their views? And at the end of the day, what are their views? Are they the views of their party, or are they the views of their donors? And in Soros's case, that's the UN and Agenda 2030.
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify, and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you So please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio. EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern, and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.